So here is something that probably comes under no particular desire but my own. Nonetheless, I'm gonna try and not waste anyone's time while explaining things somewhat vaguely but extensively in a timely manner. Sometimes I have just felt the need to express myself regardless of how many people may care. That's if I'm not shutting out the people that I even communicate with. The goal of this video is for it to be a relevant piece of dialogue during most of the possible outcomes in this reality. One potential reality that I've tried time and time again to make an actual reality is that of very long-term consistency when it comes to content creation, whether it's streaming, which is practically all I did before many years ago, or my relatively half-assed attempts at making it big right here on YouTube. My previous goal on the internet was to make some kind of community that was filled with down-to-earth people who can discuss whatever and just be somewhat supportive of each other while minimizing circle jerking but also not being toxic. It's a pretty fucking difficult balance no matter what, but the first step to that for me has probably always been inspiration. I was inspired to begin streaming and start speedrunning San Andreas back in 2013. I was inspired to make different kinds of videos here. If you look through my current videos, they are public. They aren't consistent in style and topics. This video in and of itself was inspired by someone else, that person being SSOH, aka Sir Seamus of Halo, and despite how downright brutal life is capable of being, especially during the past few years to varying degrees, not even taking into account how 2020 has been, I'm still trying to just function consistently, even though my mental state can be an endless maze to navigate and just sort through sometimes. But people who have known me can just judge me for themselves. I've generally been as kind as possible in recent times, so I don't really have anything to just apologize for. However, I will typically call out bullshit when I see it, and I do have a ruthless side when it comes to that, and among other things, I suppose. I'm an overly self-aware person most of the time, but I am capable of caring too much and too little about these goals. The thing I mentioned about inspiration doesn't mean that I lack the originality. My most quote-unquote successful endeavors have usually been random or heavily planned things that I conjure up. The counterweight to that is that I need a push and motivation to do what I do. Unless it's an absolute necessity and obligation. In this case, I have some partially written video scripts and many other ideas that just never came to be. Whether any of them or new ones do come to be, the answer will likely always be the same. I'm doing whatever I realistically can, and if I'm not, then I've probably realized that and apologized for it. There were also many times where I just had no control over continuing these endeavors, and not because I was lacking motivation. After that happens, I have to try and regain it over and over again. This can potentially sound like one big excuse, but I don't believe that it is. I don't want anything here to just sound narcissistic or fucking Discord. I don't want anything here to sound narcissistic or pompous. If it does, that's because there is no feasible way to explain something here. Only I or you yourself have similar— God damn it, fucking— I don't want anything here to sound narcissistic or pompous. If it does, that's because there is no feasible way to explain something here only I or you yourself have possibly similarly experienced. There are also so many times you can repeat yourself in a given situation. I've tried so many times to push these things forward, but I just keep hitting dead-end streets while time passes for me to find a new beneficial path, and here we are. I know how to accomplish parts of these goals, but it's just not possible in the very long-term format that I mentioned, and because of life. In this case, I'm not really giving much information, but I ultimately don't have to. I've appreciated anyone who has thrown some support my way, whatever it may be over time. Now, this isn't the most scripted video that I've done, as there probably will be things I want to add or mention after it's said and done, but Either way, I have been somewhat consistent over a long period of time socially, that being mainly on my Discord server. These words generally may or may not resonate with you, but the takeaway is that I do care. It's just that it's not always possible to rise up stronger like some people make it out to be. Time is a huge factor, if not the biggest one, as we're all practically hourglasses getting sucked through day by day to the other side until we just don't exist anymore in our bodies. It is what it is, and even though hope is a fickle thing, it's what everyone clings on to more or less. There is no way without it. So I'll leave off with hopeful thoughts, even though I'm not the most optimistic person out there. There may be a lot of content by the end of the year from me, or pretty much nothing at all. That can apply for any point in time for the most part. Despite what the video title is implying, it's not to say that this video will serve as an explanation for absolutely everything. That's not possible, but it explains most of the probabilities. Whether it's streaming or heavily scripted stuff, my ideas also need to work around the environment that are Twitch and YouTube, which I don't need to explain. You can only try and keep doing whatever works or find a way to improve. The potential for me is there, but it just goes beyond pure motivation and reasoning. It's hard not to become jaded in this case after investing so much time in the past, but I have ultimately realized that what I did on the internet was a worthwhile experience, and replicating success isn't far-fetched. It's just far too dependent on time and financial investment, among the motivational and mental factors that I touched on. With that being said, I hope this clears up certain things vaguely but extensively, like I said at the start. If not, then at least I tried. Despite all of that, I'm still trying, and that's probably the most important factor in humanity as a whole. Cheesy or not, it's usually all about maintaining your focus on trying and improving life for yourself and potentially for others, while holding out for a period of time, whatever it may be.
There's no time.